Hi, I'm Kim Rainer from All About Spirit, and I lost my internet connection the first time that I tried to go live. I apologize for that. I am inside today, first of all, because it's so windy that I'm afraid that if I was outside, you wouldn't be able to hear anything I was saying. So I'm inside today doing a recording, and I can't wait to get back outside to start doing these recordings again. So, when we are faced with a cancer diagnosis, life throws us curveball after curveball after curveball. And it doesn't matter if you are the survivor or somebody supporting or loving the survivor. It gets in our way. It gets in our way and it impacts us. It affects everything from our relationships with our bodies and ourselves to our families and our friends, our work life, our spiritual life, all the way down to our sex life. So every Monday at 10 o'clock Central Time, I do a short 15-minute or so Facebook Live episode on talking about life after cancer. And the reason that I created these episodes is because I couldn't find the kind of support that I wanted and needed when I was going through my cancer journey. So these little episodes are talking about the kind of things that I needed help with when I was going through that process and walking through the cancer journey. And today's episode is, what would I do if I had cancer? And this comes about, like all of the episodes, it comes about because of something that's gone on in my life or a conversation that I had with somebody where they're faced with that challenge or I'm faced with that challenge. And this particular episode, so often when we're going through something in life, we hear people say, oh, if I were in their shoes, I would do this. Or if I was in their shoes, I would do that. Or, man, I don't understand why they're doing that. They could just do this. And, sometimes we call that Monday morning quarterbacking, or, you can't judge somebody till you walk a mile in their shoes. And that's really true of the cancer journey. We think we know what we would do if we were in somebody else's situation, but the truth is we really don't. We have no way of knowing that. And even if we've been in a situation that's similar to theirs, there's still no guarantee that we know what we would do then. And I'll share a couple of personal experiences that I've had that really speak to that. One of them is when my dad was walking through the end of his life process. I was his primary caregiver from 2002 until 2005. And as he approached the end of his life, he had a bad hospital admission and a bad experience, and that prompted him to discontinue dialysis, which ended his life, quickly, more quickly than it probably would have. So after his end of life, I went to the hospital and I had a conversation with somebody and just shared his experience. And they invited me to come to the hospital and share as what they called the patient's voice as they designed their palliative care unit. And palliative care is a time in medicine where you aren't going to be cured of anything, but you're not ready for hospice. So it's a comfort care kind of time. It's a knowing what to expect kind of time. So I went in and I was honored to be able to share my dad's end-of-life experience from that perspective. And I sat in the boardroom as they planned their palliative care, and I explained what I thought it was like for my dad. And then 2 years after that, I was diagnosed with cancer. And what I learned was I shared that experience from the daughter of the patient's voice. I didn't share the patient's voice. I shared the daughter of the patient's voice. The patient's voice is really different than that. And I learned that I really didn't have any idea what it would have been like to be a patient in his circumstances. So today's episode is about knowing that I really don't know what it would be like to be in your shoes. And that doesn't matter if I've had cancer before or not. It's about finding a way to honor people who are in the process, because cancer is a journey and a process that includes lots and lots of people. It's not just the person who's diagnosed. It's everybody that cares about them. So how do we honor everybody's position and everybody's space in the process of the cancer journey? How do we go ahead and do that? And the first thing that I want to touch base or talk about is that, telling people what to do is really hurtful. So if somebody says, I don't think I want to treat this, or I think that I want to treat this completely, our telling them what we think they should do, it undermines the fact that we believe that they know what they're doing in the first place. It makes the environment unsafe for them and for us to talk about what's really going on for us. It's not really supportive in any way. And in a lot of ways, it takes away the rights of the patient. It takes away the rights of the person who's walking through the process. And there's a way that it really leaves us feeling like we're not heard in the situation and that people don't trust us, or that, our feelings aren't important or they don't matter. And for me, I know personally there's a way that it is trying to take control. It's trying to play God in this situation. And I know that when I get scared of something, my tendency is to want to take control. So me stepping into that role and telling people what I think they should do or how I think they should do it, it's not helpful. It's not supportive. It's not kind. So what do we do with that? How do we walk through that process? So that's one of the reactions we take. Another reaction that we sometimes have is stepping away from the situation completely. Absolutely walking away because we don't know what to say. We don't know how to say it. We're afraid to say the wrong thing. We're so uncomfortable with the emotions around all of this that we don't know what to say or do. And, a lot of times that gets interpreted as they just don't care about me. They're not interested in what's happening. And that's probably the furthest thing from the truth, right? People who assume that posture, oftentimes they care so much that they just aren't comfortable and being in their own skin in that place. So this show is really about finding out, well, what would I do if I had cancer? How would I walk through that process? And knowing that this is a process and it is a journey, and we all come to the table with different experiences and we handle things differently. So how do we handle these together? How do we come together as the survivor or the loved one of a survivor to walk through this process? And, the first thing that I'd like to say is finding a way to build a support network for yourself, finding a way to have people around you who you can share the really dark thoughts with, because dark thoughts are going to come up. To have people outside of the survivor, or outside of, if you're the survivor, outside of the people you love, having people that you can share those dark thoughts with that aren't going to judge you. They're not going to try and give you advice. They're just going to give you space to be able to share that information. That is really, really important, because the truth is you are most likely going to have dark thoughts. You are going to think things. If you're the patient, you're going to think, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I would rather be dead. And it would be hurtful to tell your parents or your children or somebody you care about that you don't want to do this anymore. And not that you shouldn't, you shouldn't be able to tell people that, but sometimes you need a safe place to be able to walk through the process and just talk about it out loud. So creating your network, or if you're the caregiver, talking about how challenging this can be, how you're not sleeping and how you're not eating and how it's impacting your life. Those are things that need to be talked about, or that you're really uncomfortable. Those are all things that are valid and true and need to be talked about. But sometimes we need somebody outside of the situation to share that information with. So that would be my first invitation, is whether you're the survivor or the caregiver or a loved one, have people outside of the immediate event that you can talk to about things. And then the second thing that I talk about is, if you feel like you're ready to talk to the survivor or your loved ones, ask permission before you start the conversation. Tell them, I've been thinking about this and I'm wondering if you'd like to hear what's going on in my mind. I'm wondering if you'd like to hear what's going on in my heart. Could we create some time to have that conversation? Not just coming in and blurting out, I don't think that you should go through that treatment, or, oh my gosh, I think you should do everything they're saying. Asking them permission if they want to hear what you have to say. And then the next thing that's really important is to sit down and listen Like you really want to understand what's going on. So many times in our life, we listen to people as if we are building our rebuttal. We're building our argument for why they should be doing this or why they shouldn't be doing that. And we're building that argument while we're supposed to be listening to them sharing their feelings. And if there's ever a time in your life that you get a wake-up call and you get an opportunity to change the way you interact with people, cancer diagnoses are one of those times. They're huge wake-up calls for family, for friends, for loved ones. So taking the time to pause and say, okay, I really want to listen to you and hear what you have to say. I want to hear what your experience is like in this process. That's a really powerful tool for being able to share in this journey. The next thing that I would say or I would suggest is, don't assume that you know how the person is feeling. I can tell you that you may have had the same experience, and I say this from my experience. I may have had the same experience. I have had a cancer diagnosis. I know what it's like to have that diagnosis for me. I don't know what it's like to have that diagnosis for you. I haven't walked in your shoes. I haven't lived in your life. I haven't had your family experiences. I don't have your financial experiences. I haven't had your work life. I don't know what it's like for you. I want to be able to know what it's like for you. I want to hear what it's like. So not assuming that you know what's going on for them is really important. And that happened to me earlier this week where I was talking to somebody who was recently diagnosed. And I found myself wanting to give them instructions and wanting to tell them how to do things and what to do. And it's like, oh, I caught myself. So no matter how hard I try practicing these things, I catch myself in the middle of it. I find myself behaving in ways that it's like, oh, that's not really what I want to be doing. So being constantly vigilant and paying attention. Another thing that's really helpful to know is that most of the time people support people the way that they like to be supported. If they want people around and really engaged and want to have conversation and want to have, want to sit and talk and get ideas and get lots of details, that's probably the way that they support other people. So if you are wanting support or being supported and you're not getting what you want, finding a way to communicate that with people is really, really helpful. It's really important because they can't read your minds. They don't know. They don't understand. They can't know what's going on in your head and your heart unless you talk to them. So finding a way to have those conversations is really important. And the last thing that I'll talk about today in this context is, when we get a wake-up call like this, when cancer or any kind of life event, really, any kind of event can be considered a wake-up call. But when we get a really big tap on the shoulder, like a cancer diagnosis, it's really helpful to take a look at it and say, okay, what am I here to learn about this situation? What can I learn about me and how I interact in the world? What can I learn about the person who's got the diagnosis? What can I learn about how my behavior impacts other people? What is there for me to learn about this situation? Is it, what can I learn about me being fully present in my life? Being able to take action from the space that I'm in right here, right now. So today's episode, what would I do if I had cancer? Unless you've had the diagnosis, you truly don't know what you would do. You can make an educated guess, but that's about as good as it could get. And walking into the process of supporting someone or having the cancer journey and hoping for supports from someone, it's really helpful to know that walking into it. So you're not expecting things that people aren't capable of giving you. And then, again, build a support network outside of the immediate group of people that are dealing with it, because you're going to need a safe place to say things that you need to say. Ask permission to share what's going on with your heart before you share it. Listen to other people to understand what they're saying and where they're coming from. Don't assume that you know what somebody else is going through, even though you may have had the same or a similar experience. Just don't assume that, because you can't really know. And then remember that people support the way that they like to be supported for the most part. Pay attention to how they do things in the world. And then last, approach the situation asking yourself, well, what can I learn from this situation? What is there that I can learn from this? So I hope that you found something in this show helpful or useful. If you did, I hope that you will like it on Facebook, share it on Facebook. Your sharing it helps make it available to other people. If you have questions or comments, I always appreciate getting the comments right below this Facebook episode, or you can send them to me privately through a Facebook Messenger. And until we have a chance to talk again next week, I really hope that life treats you well and that you find a way to release the past, to embrace whatever your new normal is, and thrive no matter what's going on in your life. Thank you for being here today in episode 15, and make it a great week.